Okay, wait a second. Hold on.
Computer crash.
Oh,
Just
no.
decides to update immediately.
I don't really feel like it.
So you were trying to can't do that.
Not live yet. Hold a second.
I shall share.
But I did not get beauty.
I shall share.
It wasn't so different.
Thank you, it is.
It's a hangnail.
Yes. It's a hangnail.
You look like a white woman's Instagram right now.
Woo.
White
Woman's Instagram.
Look, look, look.
White woman.
Yeah, Facebook did this thing where they wanted to reconfirm my account, which is really fun for you guys. Hold a second.
You're doing
We're having a
great.
great
It's
time.
all good. We are good. A white woman's
Take that back, you guys.
Instagram.
Here.
He's fucking
Gunner, do your thing.
Gunner, do your thing.
stabs in the side of the vacuum.
Oh yeah, we
All right,
go.
everybody. Facebook is making me confirm my account. So hold a second.
No, no
That's
problem.
okay.
Y'all good?
Oh, I think he's talking
He's
to
talking
live.
to the actual people.
Yeah.
Actual.
We're just
We're not really here.
yeah. It's all
Or Mr.
illusion.
Illusion.
Yeah.
Pull that real book out and start reading it. He has a lot of chords.
Some rhythm changes.
I have the fading one.
So yeah.
They like
But
it.
that real book, you know what it's good for?
Coffee stains.
Ski shoe.
Absolutely nothing.
It's beautiful, dude. I have like full on analysis on some of the features, like $4 and stuff. This is a 2.5, but it's chord. But in the key, it's like a flat 6.
Okay. So we had to reconnect our main account, which we advertised this episode on. So we are now on the air with the Erly. Sorry about that little glitch, but you know, security protocols are out there now. But this is Fam Electric Ghost, and we are live on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels with the Erly. And we're happy to have you guys on the show.
Thank you so
Hello.
much for having us.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Now, you guys have a brand new video, which we're going to queue up here, called Jasmine. It's your official music video. And we're going to actually get into that video and show the audience, this example of what you guys sound like and look like. So this is what we're going to do. We'll put you on mute, and then we'll come back and talk about your band and your process and everything like that, kind of like a behind the music episode. But thank you very much. And we're going to get into this right now.
Cool.
Sounds
Thank you.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I need to know, I need to see your face. I'm far from home, you're in a different place. We travel along the path I take before you're gone. We'll see what we can make, 'cause I got to find my way when I'm going through this crazy life, and there ain't no better day, the one where I can hold you tight. was a time before I knew your voice, before your love. I didn't have a choice. You gave me love. You gave me so much more. You gave me all that I was looking for. 'Cause I got to find my way when I'm going through this crazy life, and there ain't no better day. The one where I can hold you tight. Jasmine, you could imagine how this could happen. Jasmine, Jasmine, you could imagine how this could happen. Jasmine. Sprite tequila, the poor man's margarita. 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 Poor man's margarita. Sprite tequila, poor man's margarita. Poor man's margarita. Sprite tequila, poor man's margarita. Poor man's margarita. Sprite tequila.
That is the Erly, and that is your Jasmine video. And now we're back. So we should have you guys back on the mic.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, we did that right. So we did it right. That's good. So yeah, that's a really cool band video. You get the whole band, playing together and acting together. And so, like, who actually came up with the storyboard and the script for that?
This one.
That's me, baby. Yeah, so I wrote and storyboarded it and directed it and edited it with our videographer. His name is Max. Shameless plug to Max. He is absolutely amazing. Yeah, he's phenomenal. He's super easy to work with, very professional, and we had a great time. We shot it all in one day, edited all the next, and it was out there. So
have you done that kind of thing before?
No.
Definitely not to this extent.
Yeah, no, not this this much, but.
So is that song representative of the sound for your whole project? Yeah, do you have like an EP and an album, full album?
Yes. Yeah, I would say we felt this was the best first single from the album. Very much so a summertime vibe. We kind of wanted to capture it in a way that was kind of also hilarious in the video with our extravagant shirts and different patterns, and just trying to look a different era. And we really want to, I guess that's what we want to instill is throughout this album, you're going to hear something not of
this time period.
Yeah, but at the same time still has a pop feel to it.
Yeah, it still has I'm a child of the 70s, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I was talking to you about the Carpenters and the band that sounded like that. Yeah, and I'm a big, I grew up with like all that 70s singer-songwriter stuff.
Nice.
And being a synthesist, I was following Stevie Wonder, Funkadelic, Pink Floyd, all the Keith Emerson, Pete Townsend, like anybody that was into synths. That's what I try to do is try to bring that progressive. Yes, is my big, they're my idols. you know,
Yeah.
Genesis, like the Peter Gabriel Genesis. That's kind of where my head's at. So hearing that kind of funky sound, that's like that 70s familiar sound, that's pretty cool that you guys are doing that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you would love to know that song started on a piano. I mean, that's where I based the song from.
Mhm.
From there, Alyssa really built a lot on it. We'll get more into how that process happened as we talk about, recording this during quarantine and such. But
Yeah. So I like to always ask a band my core sound questions that I ask, because kind of get into the whole idea of this episode is I get into this like behind the music type of thing. So when did you guys first get into music? Who wants to answer? Like, what age did you guys first start getting into music? Maybe all of you are around the same age, but each one of you can kind of talk about that.
Shit. You want me to go? You
Sure.
go from this side to that side?
Ooh,
Yeah.
Yeah, however you want to do
We're
it.
down the line. Okay, so I have, basically been doing music my whole life. I like popped out of the womb riffing. Popped out and I was just like, hey bitch, I'm here. Hello. I started vocal lessons when I was 6 because I grew up, wanting to be Mariah Carey basically. And my mom was like, you're gonna blow your throat out, sweetie. Like we gotta get you some help. So started vocal lessons there, and I've been playing keys for about, I would say 12, 13 years now. And so, yeah, kept going with lessons, was in choirs, that whole shebang. Had a progressive metal band in high school. Nothing happened with that, obviously. So here I am.
Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was 14, I think. I think one of my first influences was probably Aerosmith, and then from there it went into like more 90s, like Green Day and Nirvana, then kind of went through the whole pop punk phase in high school. And then towards college more, I kind of got more into folk and folk rock, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I just try to listen to as much as I can, as many different things as I can, kind of educate myself musically.
Yeah, and so I started drums kind of when I was like probably like maybe as early as like 10 or 11 or something like that. Didn't take it too seriously, but then I saw the Beatles movie Help, and I instantly was like, okay, I want to do this now. So
Did you want to be a drummer because of Ringo, or because of somebody else?
it was, I think honestly it goes back to when MTV had music videos on TV.
Okay,
I saw the band Jet playing "Are You Gonna Be My Girl," and the drummer looked awesome in that. So I think that's what made me want to play drums. But then Ringo was the one that made me want to stick with it, I think. So playing Beatles records and all those other kind of 70s records nonstop, and then
it's so interesting that the Beatles are even today are still inspiring so many bands.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I come from a musical background. My grandmother was a classical piano player, also played in the church on organ. My father is basically my first guitar teacher, one I had for most of my life before I moved off to college. I teach guitar. My first instrument, though, is piano, much more visual for me, a lot easier for me to pick up quickly. So I would say I've been studying that for about 15, 16 years, but guitar, 12. Other than that, I like to dabble with bass as well Collin. Other than that, I would play in the Laporte Orchestra, just session. Probably my biggest claim was playing for Wayne Newton. So we all kind of do work outside of the band studio work, and but that's kind of where it got me to this band. I started mainly in the church performing, and having a live setting is just the ideal thing for a musician that wants to really spread out, their talents. So
it's how you learn, with jamming. I do a lot of jamming with musicians just because, I don't really care if I get paid. I just like to play. I'm a keyboard player, so I was like, okay, you need a keyboard player, and I like to do my own thing, as you can see, but I will go and fit in and do what you traditionally do. But as a keyboard player, not being the lead, you're kind of part of a group, kind of like a drummer is like always part of a group, keyboard
Yeah.
player is the same
Mhm.
thing. So let me get into the next set is, so you all been working on music. So maybe like the question I get into that's a little bit more than that is like, when did you realize you had a talent for music and then want to write your own music? Because people will go and, become studio musicians or play like in orchestras or do like cover bands, but it's like a singer songwriter mentality. What makes you want to take your own material and do your own thing? And each one of you can maybe tell that story.
I can go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I knew I had talent, if you can call it that, when I was able to play my first song on electric. I think it was Know Your Enemy by Green Day. So I could copy that and play that. And then as I started doing like more Aerosmith and Black Sabbath, I realized that, okay, these songs have a lot of the same chords. And then I can kind of listen to those chords and figure out how they're used in other songs. So I guess that's when I knew I had a knack for it. At least it was something I could pick up. As far as writing music, I guess it was just something I wanted to see, just to see if I could do it. And that wasn't too long after I picked up acoustic first, and then I just kind of I played this same rhythm on the guitar, which now that I look back was just D and G, and then I wrote these lyrics to it. So it's corny. It's called "Don't You Know That She's the One," which again, that's as cringy as it sounds. But yeah, that's how I knew okay, so I'm at least able to write songs. Now the trick is to just try and get good at it. And it's just kind of like, for me, it's like riding a bike. You just keep writing and writing, and eventually you kind of get a knack of how to structure songs and how melodies and chord progressions work. And you just try to link it all up to stuff that sounds good.
Fran, I want to hear this.
Oh no.
Fran, I want to hear this.
I know.
We all have written
I know.
songs for this album.
I know,
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here like, oh yeah.
I
I know. Well, I think as a drummer, I think it was once I started playing with other people, and I
Mhm.
realized, like that's what I want to do all the time, is just be playing with other people and it not sucking.
Was that hard to
actually grooving together and being in a pocket like that I think is when I kind of realized it was kind of working.
Was it
And-
hard to get your parents to accept you being a drummer? Because I know drummers always have to say, well, my parents have to like, really have patience with me.
Well, that's the funny thing. Like my parents were like the best, I think, because they were just like, even like they didn't care. They were just like, yeah, keep hitting the drums. So
Yeah, I know, because some parents is like, I had, my brother was a guitar player and I'm a keyboard player, but every time we brought the drummer over, I could see my mom and dad frowning.
yeah,
And they're like, it was bad enough for you guys playing the keyboard and guitar, and now this drummer's coming in.
yeah, make things 1,000 times
Yeah,
louder.
we'd be a limitation. You guys can only do 4 hours, and that's it. That's it.
Once the sun goes down, you guys are done.
You guys are done. 9 o'clock, you're done. You're done.
Yep. There's a cutoff time for
You're
it.
cutting it off. Curfew.
I don't care.
You can go if you want to.
I guess what were you saying though? How did you get to the writing process?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know. I always liked writing. I mean, especially like I was saying, I was really into the Beatles, so Lennon and McCartney, that's a powerhouse. But I think Lennon McCartney leads to Dylan, and that leads to others like Croce and Jackson Brown and all those people. So I think just listening to them a lot, and then like within the past couple of years, and getting really into John Prine and all that kind of stuff. So I think just listening to that all the time just makes you want to write your own stuff. So
That's interesting.
So I think honestly that's the songwriting thing. I really like Taylor Goldsmith and stuff like that. Just kind of wanting to find your own voice and that kind of stuff. So
Well, you mentioned Dylan. I think when I was a kid, that kind of got me really into it was listening to the Basement tapes for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
I listened to like Dylan in the band, right? And then I had a buddy that actually had the bootleg of the original Basement tapes that weren't cleaned up.
Wow.
Right? And then that's what I like.
Yeah.
Like, I like the actual ones that weren't cleaned up by Robbie.
Yeah.
And I like these raw Basement tapes were like, that's got this kind of Americana punk aesthetic. It's got this like folk thing with like rock thing. And I'm like, and it's got this like Dylan's crazy ability to write these songs kind of off the cuff out of the ether
Yeah.
Yeah.
that are so developed. I'm like, man, and he's just kind of tossing them out, and I'm like, wow. I think that gives you something to try to reach for.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I remember
Yeah.
watching Dylan, not in person, but you can find it on YouTube when he does Mr. Tambourine Man at the Newport Folk Festival.
Oh yeah.
And I just, there was something about that. You have the guitar, which is the rhythm, then you got lyrics, and then you've got the harmonica, which can do some kind of lead melody. And
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, okay, so that's the minimum stuff of what you need to make a song. And then with a band, you build off of that. So that's kind of etched into my brain when it comes to writing songs. I kind of need those three things in order for it to work.
Who wants to go next?
I don't think I ever really wrote lyrics to my first song until I was in college, and it was after I was studying aural skills. I always found it quite much to be a challenge to play some of the stuff I would do because I was so advanced with guitar by the time I wanted to start singing. It was like, okay, if I want to play over or sing over something hard, it might as well be something I'm comfortable with doing, you know?
Yeah.
First song I wrote, the band picked up, and that's how I joined this band. It was called Tread Around, and I always focus hard on the chorus section. As long as I got a good hook, I can build off of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old like Motown method. Like
Exactly.
if you get into like the Funk Brothers and everybody's like, do you have a groove or do you not have a groove? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you get into like, you know, the old soul guys. It's like, yeah, it's got a groove or it doesn't have a groove. It's got a drummer. The drummer's got it or he doesn't have it. You know? You know? And then he's like, okay, if everybody's grooving, you put it in the tape cassette and you drive around town and people start liking it, then you know you got it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, the ultimate goal for my writing was that I wanted it in front of people just to see how it was. It's a stressful moment the first time you take a new song out.
Yeah.
But like the worst they can do is not like it. And then you learn just as much, if not more, than when they do appreciate and like it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I like to like just go in front of audiences, which is harder today because of COVID. But I kind of created this platform where, you know, I go out live from my studio like all the time because I will actually, one of my techniques is I actually will do stream of consciousness rehearsals and then just, you know, do like an hour worth of recording because I kind of read about Frank Zappa, right? And Zappa used to go out and just bring his reel to reels and tape everything he did.
Yeah.
And then he would go back and listen to it and then grab pieces from different projects and then put songs together. And I said, well, you know, that's a good way of doing it because then you just kind of force yourself not to have to stop.
Yeah.
Right? You keep on stopping and starting, but if you just say, I'm going to go live and just let it be.
Yep. Yep.
And then you can, the magic just somehow happens because you know you can't, because you're live, you don't want to keep on stopping and starting, so you just do it.
No, for real. Through the process of writing, we were constantly using the more modern technology of voice memos on, you know, like an iPhone 12.
Yeah.
But we would listen back, and there's things that we'll recreate on the stuff we want to record, and it's almost like we're leaning on what we wished we could pull off every time that like first time we recorded something. It's so weird how it happens so naturally that it's almost like you want to recreate that after the fact, you know?
Well, some people even use the original voice memo if they can't recreate it, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like you get to the studio. One thing I found as a recording producer is like, sometimes like if I do something with working with another artist, right?
Yeah.
We do something like 20 times. If we go back to the first 3 times, usually the first 3 times is better than the last like
100%.
And I tend to be the kind of guys like I'm gonna go with like the second or third or even first take. Because I think that what happens is the artist tends to start rewriting and taking the honesty out, and then I'll challenge them and say, you were really honest with the first version and now you're backing away from it.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
I'd rather deliberate.
go with the first intention.
Exactly, the initial intention. No, that's a great segue to Alyssa. Probably out of anybody recording this album, she probably took the most takes on some of the most difficult parts vocally.
Yeah, I tend to try and challenge myself vocally because I have been singing for so long. It's not that it gets boring or anything, but it's just that I like to keep pushing myself so that I can learn more and then, be better because of that, right? So, on this album, there were a couple vocal lines which, I don't know. I'm very particular. So like there's a way that I hear it in my head and I want it to be just like that. And I know that I can do it, but I'm like, I go into the studio ready to do that. And if it's even just like a little smidgen, I'm like, let me do what I got, And so during one of our songs, Echoes, there's this very high belt I have to do. It's an F#5. And I got to hold it for like a measure, right? But leading up to that, there's about a minute of build up. And I think I worked on it probably how long? Maybe 2 hours? Maybe 2.5 hours?
I think I took a nap during it.
Yeah, he did. Trev somehow napped on the couch while I was like belting.
It was perfect timing, yeah.
Full chest. And he was just like, I'm like, okay, bitch, like go off, But yeah, so our producer had me just doing it a bunch of times. I think I did it 13 or 14 times. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick the best one. And I was like, I want to hear them all.
And
I'm going to sit with you.
Wasn't it like one of the first 3 takes?
It was the first
the
one.
First take, yeah.
The first take that I did. I was
That's
like,
what happens.
now I got to be on vocal rest for like a week. And I didn't even have to do it. Like, why am I like this?
Well, you never know. I think like Hendrix was famous for that. Like I have all these Hendrix outtakes, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Multiple versions of, like Voodoo Child and there's like so many great solos and like which one do you pick, right?
Exactly.
And I'm listening to all the demos and it's weird, like the one he picked is like it's so iconic. It's like, okay, how could you ever pick anything else? But there were other ones that were just as good, and it's like a choice. And he's like, and the thing is, like, his producers and stuff used to tell him, like, he was so good that you could just pick any of them. And then you'd have to go back and say, well, this one had something about it.
Yeah.
And then they would kind of make the choice. But it's interesting that, with live bands, like with a band that's actually playing instruments, compared to like a lot of people today that are totally on the grid.
Yeah.
I'm kind of when they get into that, we'll get into the kind of recording technology, but
sure.
One of the things that I used to use DAWs, and then I'm into analog and modular stuff. And so I stopped using DAWs because I like just capturing my analog the way it is.
Yeah.
And so I started just going into like raw hardware recording. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, you're making it harder on yourself. It's like, well, I kind of want it to sound like the way I'm going to play it.
I always call it more human,
Yeah.
More
so
human.
I can actually learn the song. So when I get out there, I actually know the song.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
I didn't just cut and paste it around the grid, and now I have to go and relearn it because I don't really know what I did anymore.
Right.
But it's just interesting the technology is really cool. And like if you're in different genres like EDM and hip hop, it's like it's necessary for those guys to do it that way, and they maybe aren't like instrument musicians. More production type musicians. There's nothing wrong with them. They're guys like from De La Soul and Public Enemy. They did amazing stuff. Yes. And even today, you have guys, like Earl Sweatshirt and the Tyler Creator. They do some really cool things.
Oh, I love Earl Sweatshirt. If I could shout out.
There's some really. Yeah. So I mean, everybody has different techniques. You just make a choice of what you want to do, and maybe you have a hybrid.
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
That seems to be where we're sitting right now. It's like a happy medium where live instruments are accepted, but also like it's welcome to have electronics that kind of either embellish it or just keep it like modern, I guess.
Well, if you want to introduce a big like orchestra and add strings and add all these backing tracks and add things that actually really sound like horns. Yeah, but the only problem I think with some bands is that they get those backing tracks too intense. And when they go to play, they're kind of trapped by their backing tracks.
You don't want to be buried.
You don't want to be so trapped by your backing tracks that you only can play your song as you recorded it, and then it takes all the fun out of it.
Exactly.
Because I'm kind of a guy that I used to go see the Dead and Funkadelic and the Allman Brothers And I like the fact
man.
Oh yeah.
I could go see him 3 days in a row and they would play Melissa a little bit different every day.
Sure.
Oh,
Right.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't the same because Greg just felt like doing something different on a Hammond B3 and he'd do it different.
Yeah.
Or he'd add a set of lyrics that weren't there the night before. And I'm like,
Right.
Mhm.
you know, and Dylan was famous for that. I mean, there's multiple versions of Idiot Wind. There's multiple versions of Tangled Up in Blue. And I actually saw Dylan one time in the 70s, and I saw him 2 nights in a row, and he ran 2 versions of Tangled Up in Blue with different characters.
Wow.
The songs have different characters. They have different sets of lyrics.
Wow.
And one night he did one version, and another night he did the other version. And I'm like, I think that was fun for him as a writer, because he's like, you know, I'm going to see how people react to this one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, compared to the one I did on the record. But that's one thing I think is cool, like that when you kind of get outside of the DAW, you kind of
Yeah.
let yourself go and you say, well, I'm going to take this song and I'm going to interpret it based on how I feel tonight.
Mm,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah. Alyssa joining the band, we had a bass player that eventually departed. We wanted to basically relearn some of our old tunes, and it's kind of become that thing where like, okay, how are we feeling tonight? Do we want to do this one soft? Do we want to do this one more up? And like,
Mhm.
it is nice to set different tones in a live setting that like, it'd be great to record each and every one of those, but like the experience live is what we're going for, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about like a band with people who are playing, you know, instruments.
Yeah.
Right.
that you have the ability to kind of read the crowd or read yourself.
Exactly.
Mhm.
You
Exactly.
know, so if you get into a situation where you're like in tune with your audience, right?
Yeah.
And then you're feeling like a certain way, then you're gonna carry off a different performance that, you know, like it's worth actually trying to tape yourself to see like what you do. You know, because it's like you never know how you're gonna perform. Because I mean, I always talk about Hendrix, but I have all these live Hendrix shows, and depending on how he felt, like, and I have like the biography of Hendrix, right? And some nights, like he had like a breakup with one of his girlfriends, and then he went out and did like Red House, and
Oh,
and the Red House that night had this intensity
yeah.
that it never had before. And then you wonder why it's like, boy, he just broke up with his girlfriend. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So like you kind of feel that it's like he was able to put that into
Yeah.
the song, you know, and that's kind of, you know, I think every musician puts their heart or what they're feeling, but it's just cool to, you know the history behind certain things. But
Oh yeah.
I just think when you're locked in, you can't do it as much.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, for real. Yeah, because like I think like sometimes we'll just be playing a tune, and then Trevor would just be like, "I think I'm gonna try this," and we're like, "Okay, we'll follow you."
Yeah.
We're gonna take it this direction, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's cool when you can feel you have such a unit that if somebody goes off, it's kind of like in jazz. Like if you listen to jazz, you listen to Coltrane or Sun Ra or Mingus,
Mhm.
and they go off, right?
Yeah.
And then they come back, and one of the drummer decides to do something a little bit different on the break, and then the saxophone player is like, oh, okay, I'm gonna riff something, and he just pulls something like out of a show tune, and then pulls that line in just because he felt like doing it, and then everybody kind of runs with it, you know, and then you're like, okay,
I would say that makes almost like as equal fun for the band as it is the audience. Is when at some point in the show you're like, I'm gonna start having a conversation with one of the members of the band, you know, like say someone takes a solo. It's fun to like sneak in parts. I would say that's something even like Chick Corea would do, where you would hear someone solo and he would perfectly either end their line for them on piano or he'd say something. It would be like a
call and response.
Yeah.
Basically.
No,
Like,
yeah,
it'd be
the call and response is awesome. Yeah. That's like a very traditional thing. Like in jazz, you see that a lot of that call and response,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
just being able to bring in other tunes and just kind of randomly, like it's like the way people sample today. Jazz bands would say, okay, I'm going to bring this in,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they would just play it and just bring it in, and it's like, okay, and I just think it's like it's really how they felt. Like, okay, how's that guy feel tonight? He felt like doing that, and he did, you know,
Yeah.
and Yeah, so I mean, I think music's got a lot of feel and a lot of emotion, and anything that lets you express that, whether it's high tech stuff or old school stuff, however you do it, it's just a way to express yourself in the most immediate way to get that connection from what's in your, it's like your muse. I think a lot of musicians, like people are like the question I always ask when you write, like your writing style, do you kind of like do you like really plan out your song, or do you feel your song comes to you from like the muse or the ether, and this is because some people will say their song kind of came to them like a dream, and it's like a lot of it's there, and then other people it's like I had to really work on that. Or is it kind of like if every song's different?
Well, for me, it's I guess it depends, but for me, it's inspiration versus motivation. You know, if something inspires me to write a song, then it's okay. Let's record this on a phone or get it down so I can at least remember it, and then I just kind of build off it from there. And as far as with the band, if I write a song, I think, okay, this might be good for the band. I try to make sure I have the gist of the song down before I bring it to the band, because I don't like bringing half of an idea. But if I have the foundation of a song, I can bring that to the band, and then everyone can add their little flavor and maybe change this up or change that up, and that turns into songs you hear from us.
Yeah. Gosh, it's like I said, was starting with choruses and writing in general. I would say, in a sense, where we've played the song so many times, we start to mess with it differently. But like probably in the infancy of most tunes, we kind of, when we figure it out, we kind of almost want to go for the natural based off of something. That's on my side. If I write something like, okay, I'll write the chorus part, let's do a verse separate, almost like, so it stands out that they're different, in some way. Fran's always like, do I just push it straight? Do I push a swing at some points? But like the way we as a band can flow with him helps really change the mood, or subtracting parts of instruments or something. I think it's always about, at the end of the day, what is the audience willing to listen to, and how long can they bear it? So that's what kind of like the challenges are always there. Is this interesting enough? Or is this
Always,
too much,
yeah.
at this time?
Because I always find I was always interested in like the history of bands, right? So I'm looking at like the Who, and like the Who, like Pete Townsend would pretty much write everything.
Yep.
Yeah. Come with a demo that was pretty much the whole song. But like Keith Moon, he can't play like Keith Moon. He can't play like Entwistle.
No.
Right? And he can't really sing like Daltrey. So what would happen is those guys would bring their capabilities, and they have this intention of what Pete had his intention.
Yeah.
But then they kind of make the song, they service the song with their skill set.
Sure.
So when you get Entwistle and Moon kind of just soloing through the whole song, giving it this different energy than what Pete had, a more steady beat, but then suddenly you get this kind of jazz kind of crazy thing going on. And then Daltrey taking Pete's like sensitive voice and belting it out with this like powerful lead singer, right? And it changed the whole dynamic. And so you get this kind of roadmap, but then the band brought their skill set. So everybody, the bass player, he brings his skill set, the drummer brings his skill set, the singer, takes the song and gives it the passion, that Daltrey gave it compared to Pete's passion, which is a different type of thing. Sometimes people say, well, Pete's songs are actually still good. And so sometimes you want to hear Pete doing Behind Blue Eyes.
Yeah.
Because the way he does it.
Yeah.
But Daltrey does it a different way. So it's just interesting, like when you're in a band, it's like, how do you decide what flavor or what direction you're going to go? But I think you try to service the song, the intention of the original song.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I definitely agree with that, especially with drums. It's like if you do too much, it's like no one's gonna want to listen,
Yeah.
One thing as a drummer, you just got to serve the song. It's just that's what I think in the writing process.
Definitely.
I always ask them, am I doing a little too much?
Too much. Yeah. and or he'll start thinking real hard about cymbal choice and portions. Even like, do I hit the ride? Nope, staying on hats. You know what? Just through hats, no hits. That's a big thing. That wouldn't Ringo just no crash, no cymbal, just straight.
Yeah, Ringo was good at keeping that kind of Motown feel.
Yeah.
Yep.
He kind of, I think he was a good student of like listening to Motown
Oh yeah.
and figuring out how to integrate that into like a power pop band like the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
So you take that pocket drumming that the guys at Motown could do and do these 3-minute, 4-minute songs, but then they have the Beatle chords, and then you've got the stuff that you know they were able to introduce the psychedelic elements, and so then they started to get beyond like just normal songs. They started to go into progressive stuff that became like what the Pink Floyd and what Yes and what Genesis started to do. After you get Abbey Road, and you get those albums where they start to actually do more progressive type of construction.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, and I'm probably more of a fan of when they start going that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All my songs are 6-7 minutes, so like where my head's at.
Which is great.
Yeah. Little progressive elements coming through.
Yeah, it's like, but the problem today is like I get all these guys are like, "Can you take that down to 2 minutes?" I'm like,
No.
"It's 7 minutes. That's what it is."
Hell no. I'm not gonna take the whole song.
Yeah, but every time I try to distribute with somebody, they take my stuff and they cut it down to like 2 minutes. And I'm like,
Wow.
"You guys didn't really listen to it, did you?"
For real, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that they wanted to do that to Hotel California. They were like,
Yeah. I mean, they wanted to do that to
everyone's
to
like,
the Queen.
yeah.
Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody, yeah. That was definitely a Freddie Mercury like image, where you just got to roll with it, and they did.
Well, he forced it because he went and had it filmed, right?
Yeah.
So the way they got it through, the history on that is the record label said they were not going to release that full song, right?
No.
They weren't going to do it. And then he went and had it filmed and then sent to TV stations.
Wow.
And then when the TV stations ran it, then suddenly radio started getting requested to play the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they kind of went around it. It's kind of like what happened with MTV, because MTV got stuff like that to happen. Because like once you do a video and it goes over 3 minutes, and you do these longer form things, then people are like, "Oh, I want to see that. I want to hear it." And then, but the radio is always going to try to knock it down to like under 3 minutes, just because that's what they want to do.
Right.
But it's like, as an artist, what's your intention? Like, this is the age of the Spotify playlist. This is the age of people not listening to a vinyl album all the way through, unless you're an audiophile like me. But
Sure.
But so like, is there a pressure to just put out singles, but you guys are doing an album? So there's a lot of artists that all they do is like singles, and maybe they do an EP. But that seems like because the way the market is, they want to put you into these playlists, and that's the game. So what are your feelings about that? How do you manage like what you guys want to do with that kind of world?
I guess that just comes down to the writing process. I think we decide, okay, does this feel too long? Because there's a difference between a song being long and then feeling too long, and then a song being short and then just feeling too short. So I think those are the only times we think about how the length of it is if it sounds good performed live and stuff like that. And then after that, then we decide, okay, this song is the shorter of the bunch. Maybe this could be a single or something that kind of has a poppy feel to it. But that all comes after the songs have been written.
Well, yeah, and I think like for like doing singles, EPs, and albums, like I don't know, me personally, I've always been an album person because I love syncing. Sure, you get the first couple singles, but then I like to dig into the other tracks and then just kind of, because then those eventually kind of become your favorite tunes. So I don't know, just me personally, I'm just like, I don't know if like I don't know, single and EP. I mean, you put out the singles, but it's just love to have that full album. So I think there's still a market for that. People wanting to.
Yeah, it seems to be coming back because of COVID. Not to come, but people seem to have a little bit more time
Mhm.
on their hands because they're home so much, or they're not doing what they were doing before. So, vinyl has a resurgence,
Oh,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so the thing about vinyl is it makes you listen to a whole project. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a child of the '70s. Why you got Led Zeppelin 4
Yeah.
with my brother. We were like, damn. For the first time when we heard this, like, in '74 or something, like, or '73, but we were like, what the hell? It's like we just like we're just vibing on it, and we just kept on flipping it over and listening like,
Yeah.
all the way through. Yeah, and we were like, the same thing when Pink Floyd, Wish What You Were Here, and is like their design was like you had to listen to the whole thing. You
Yeah.
couldn't just pick. You wouldn't just take the style and go jumping around a record. Like you put it on,
I mean,
and you would be with your friends in the basement, and you listen to the whole thing.
yeah, I think that's really the ultimate goal is to kind of make an album that feels like a complete project. Like of course we're gonna release the singles to like appease the Spotify algorithm to get us on those playlists or like to generate buzz for
Yeah.
the actual album coming out. But that's something that we really worked hard on is trying to make it sound cohesive, like it's a unit. Like all the songs bring something different to the table, but they all correlate with one another, and it all sounds like one project. Or I hope it does when you guys listen to it. But
So I mean, that's the magic on an album. Because I mean, the whole point is that it is like this cohesive thing, whether it's a concept album like Tommy or Quadrophenia.
very much.
You-
Yeah.
A classic album from the '70s wasn't necessarily Tommy.
No.
It was the fact that you could have Tapestry, or you have these like anything the singer songwriters would put these albums out, and it's not a concept, but the songs go together.
Oh, sure,
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
They have a feel. If you go listen to the classic Steely Dan albums,
Oh,
they're
yes.
like there's no concept, but somehow all the songs work together like there is a concept.
yeah.
Exactly.
And so they have a feel like they go together, like Aja. Everything feels like it goes together, but they're unique stories, but they all fit in that single platform where they put together as a record.
Right.
And that's what I love. And it's weird. It's interesting that like in hip hop, it's very popular to have these like album oriented projects, but
Yeah.
rock seems to have gone away from it. But then I see more bands trying to come back to it. Like I've been talking to bands in the last year, like yourself, band more like your band, and they are coming back to it.
Mhm.
In the indie world where we are, there's a lot of bands that say, yeah, I mean, I designed this. This is a project. This is an album. It's not just one song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For real.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of the goal with this. The track listing for this was a lot of fun. Trying to think of, I would think too analytical about it, like, oh, it's in the same key. Oh, this person's on it. But at the end of it, it's like, yes, they're all very much so different, but they go together very well. And when you listen entirely through, this being pressed on vinyls, something in the future,
Mhm.
is the goal of the audience to listen to the entire thing.
Yeah.
Because just because we do want to push quite a few singles for this album, the ones that are going to be on it, we feel it's like the ultimate arrival to be to the album.
Plus, when you play, like a lot of times when a band goes on tour, they play the album.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
as yeah.
Because like if every tour kind of represents an album. At least from I'm like a child of the '70s, so I go see, the Allman Brothers is like they're playing like one of their albums, and they're
Mhm.
playing it all the way through, like Eat a Peach. They got to play the whole
Yeah.
thing through. And or I go see the band, and they're playing one of their albums all the way through.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
with Dylan,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that was like, okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
They get that feel. You get this like, okay, they're on stage. Like even Bowie would come out with his concept, right? So he would go on stage and he's like Aladdin Sane, or
Yeah.
he's like Ziggy,
Yeah.
or he's like a Thin White Duke, and so he's going to be that guy for that whole show, and he's going to be in that vibe.
Yeah.
And then Freddie Mercury he'd do the same thing. He'd be
Oh,
in this kind of, have this vibe for the record. He'd change his look for the record.
Sure.
Mhm.
And on stage, he would be that guy for that record.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
So is that something about like when you guys go, are you interested in like how you how you look to the audience, or you're more into like we're just gonna play the music?
I would say, yeah, we put ourselves together pretty well. We make sure we try to capture a vibe, right?
Especially with the artwork. I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had to dress up for that, but that did. Alyssa kind of helped me with that. Something as simple as a jean jacket just kind of makes all the difference.
I lent him my distressed jean jacket. He looked
Yeah, we try
fire.
to. You gotta always create the look for the band. You think
Yeah.
about it, every band's gotta have kind of a look.
That's why you need a girl. I got you. I'm the stylist.
Yeah, you got the idea. You the art director, so you know where you want to go.
That's me.
And I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, wow, I've never looked like this before.
He was like,
I like it.
But he loved it. Yeah, he
Yeah.
loves it.
absolutely.
But yeah, I think clothes, or at least a look, does help. At least with a live performance, how you perform, especially like if you are going out as some kind of character or something, or at least you're going for a vibe. I think a look matters because you make a choice ultimately. However, even if you just go out in jeans and a t-shirt, then that's a choice you're making, and
Absolutely.
you're going for that kind of vibe. So it just depends on the
Yeah, I mean, you're going to look like. Are you trying to come out like the Stones did for like Exile on Main Street, or
Yeah.
you're trying to do like this more esoteric thing when they were trying to do like a copy of Sgt. Pepper's? But
Right.
you never know like which way are they trying to present yourself. And it's just interesting, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff that like these like EDM guys do. They come out like Dead Mouse, and even me, as the ghost, they like I actually come out like trying to be a ghost.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of weird effect things to try to make myself fit into that idea. But it's just it's like I said, I'm a child of the 70s, and I'm a big fan of bands that tried to present like a theater, to the idea like, okay, if you're gonna come out and you say you're a ghost, then maybe you should be like a ghost.
Play the part.
Yeah.
Play the role.
Play the part. Yeah, absolutely.
So when you guys get into recording in the studio, do you guys like all work in your own like DAWs or own home studios, and come together into a bigger studio and put everything together in your own kind of workflow? To maybe talk about like what your workflow process is. It's like home recording, traditional recording, how you put it together, and how that was, done during COVID.
Well, yeah. Well, I think the nice or the with the new album, because we kind of like doing the whole live feel kind of thing. So luckily, before COVID happened, we were able to get all the basic tracking done as a live band.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
We had
drums.
4 days.
Yeah, so
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Drums, bass, guitar, bass, guitar, and then some keys.
Some overdubs.
A little bit of keys.
Yeah.
I overdubbed most of the keys.
But yeah,
because-
because we wanted to have that natural rhythm section feel.
yeah.
But
I
then everything,
yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the probably more puzzle piece together albums.
Yeah.
What you just heard for Jasmine was recorded in this room on my Logic Pro DAW with a propeller head interface. This condenser mic we're using right now is a microphone.
Yeah.
And it was great because I could do a lot of takes and I'm comfortable. I didn't have to go somewhere.
Mhm.
Guitar parts are thrown on from it, but I could redo that for hours if I wanted to get the perfect one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have the restrictions of the studios. Like, well, you got like, you're paying for that hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Paying by the hour, and then they got the recording engineer there saying, "Oh, do it again, do it again."
It's more like pressure at that point than getting comfortable with it. Like, oh god,
Yeah.
I could feel the wallet draining as I'm
Yeah.
playing.
Paying your wallet. Like, does he want me to do it again because he wants the money?
Right? Yeah, sheesh. I mean, we're in the studio right now recording some new stuff that's after this album even, but I have a keys solo, a little organ solo, and I'm sweating. I'm like, oh my god, Jesus. Like, woo! Trev came out and he's hitting the organ like Leslie's
the rotary.
Yeah, yeah.
speaker for me. Jeez. Yeah, on album 2, we went into the studio and we had 4 days until quarantine hit. So it was like we got in, we did the basic tracking, we were getting ready to do the vocals and everything, and then it was like, oh, just kidding, the whole world is on lockdown, and we're like, oh, okay.
Well, at least you got it done. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So most of my keys were overdubbed because we were actually waiting on my Nord to come in. I play a Nord Stage 3 HP76. And
Nice board. Nice board.
thank you. Yeah, I love my little baby. But I ordered it on Reverb, and it was coming from Czechoslovakia. And because of COVID, yeah, you know,
It took a while probably to come.
it took a hot minute. And so yeah, because I wanted those other sounds and things, we ended up overdubbing my keys. But it all worked out. I mean, once quarantine hit, we did everything remotely. So Trev was recording vocals, like you said, in this room. A couple of the songs were recorded in my room. I set up like a little makeshift soundproof, like, you know,
Yeah.
dampening sound
Closet.
shit in my closet. No, literally in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Brockhampton in the closet.
Yeah, Brockhampton stuff.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, go in the closet, put a hood over your.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's real. That's what I was doing. So
Well, a lot of people are doing it, and it, you know, the studios would tell you, oh, you can't do it, right? But there's a lot of records that are being done and they're doing well.
yeah, no, you can definitely do it. I mean, people have proven it over and over again that it's possible.
The majority of this album was recorded in Collin's garage with two like painter size like A-shaped ladders and a blanket. And we're just singing to our producer who's I think
on a computer.
Zoom calling or
Yeah.
Zoom calling in.
and
Google meeting, yeah.
controlling the DAW from inside that computer from his home. So that was awesome.
Every 30 minutes we'd have to refresh so we could gain control of the mouse again.
Yeah, he had to keep
Yeah.
getting control of the mouse in
Yeah.
sessions. So.
It was a trip, man. It was whack. Like I mean, it was an incredible experience. I would do it over again 10 times if I
Yeah,
had
I
to.
mean, a lot of the things I've been doing, I've been working with bands from all, like, you know, cross collaboration. I mean, I'm actually, you know, I work with bands like, you know, Iceland, New Zealand, you know,
Nice.
Australia, and it's crazy because you got to do a Skype,
Yeah.
and then they send you a file, and then you go on the Skype and you listen to it, and you say, hey, no, change this, change that, and then go back and like, okay, and then send it back over. And it's like, you know, you're doing it through a meeting, but if you've got the vibe, if you like what you know, if you found something that made you want to work with the person, right? Then
Yeah.
it's like, it works because you're like, you get passionate about it. And even though you can't be in the same room, you can still get a lot done. You know?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, through quarantine, I was collabing with different artists on Instagram and stuff. Our good friend Julian White, he lives in New York. He and I did some stuff together. Same thing. We'd be on Zoom. I'm like recording it and then sending him the files and things like that. Like the latency is crazy, but it is definitely possible. You know, like
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if somebody would build. I mean, I heard there are people gonna, you know, would build a DAW that actually has real time video capabilities without the lag.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's probably the future, man.
That's
I-
my next step.
Yeah.
I really think that you know, I've been pushing that for like the last 2 years because like in 2017, I was doing this collab with this actress in Los Angeles, and you know, she was in FL Studio and I was doing everything analog, and so
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
so she would send me her FL Studio stuff, but then she was like, oh, like every time I render my stuff, it's not what I want.
Exactly.
And then I like, well, send it to me and I'll throw it through the analog stuff, and so I got closer to what she wanted.
There you go.
But yeah, it's like, so I found a way to help. But yeah, it's just interesting, like how musicians, we keep on going even though there's this whole crisis, and some people are like, well, how can you still work? It's like, well, because I think, and I'll ask you guys, like when I do music, I do it because I love it,
Yeah.
not because I'm trying to make money. If I ever make money, that's cool. But a lot of times, what I do is like I just want to get into it. Like I said, I'll show up at a gig and I don't care if I get paid because I just want to play with a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just like to play. So
Yeah.
and eventually, money comes because I don't worry about it. It just happens. But it just seems like a lot of us do it because we're passionate about what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with this album is that despite all the obstacles that happened, the main thing is that we all knew how we wanted these songs to sound. And, you know, by the time we go in to record, we're pretty well rehearsed and we're always open to, you know, happy accidents that might happen in the recording process, and all that's good. But, you know, I think despite whatever obstacles we had to do because of quarantine, we had our goal in mind of how we wanted this record to sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think happy accidents, that's a big thing for me because I think a lot of times, like I was funny. I was working with this producer in Holland and he came to me and like, I tell him I don't use the DAW, right? I don't use it. Right. So,
Yeah.
right. So, and if you listen to my stuff, I'm kind of like, well, I'm very analog and very experimental. So like coming into it and he's like, oh, I put your stuff in a DAW and it's like, it's not hitting the BPM. I was like, what? And I'm like, well, you know what? Like I play live.
Yeah.
So if you play with me, you kind of got to play live too.
Yeah.
You know, you can't like try to put my stuff on the grid because my modes and stuff might be a little off
Yeah.
because that's what they are. and if you want to sync in with me, you kind of got to take your bass and play live with it,
Yeah.
Right.
not put it on the grid because it might not work.
Yeah.
And it definitely won't work. But yeah, it's just like so it seems like to me it's like this whole idea, the happy accident, you know, when you're dealing with a computer, it was like, well, that you shouldn't do that because your BPM's off or your keys off. And it's like, well, maybe like if you told Keith Richards that, you would never have Keith Richards,
No.
you know, because he's off all the time. I mean, because that's the nature of the way he plays. But that's the brilliance of how he plays.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like this sloppy thing, but not sloppy, but it's not going to track right in the computer.
Yeah,
It's just not going to do it because that's not how he plays. He plays more like a jazz guy.
yeah, I know. It's like because I was thinking there, it's like, you know, if you try putting like the classic band records on the grid,
It won't work.
it wouldn't work at all. You know,
No,
like,
it won't.
the chemistry they had playing together, it pushes and pulls, but it feels great. And if you tried to put Levon on the grid, that'd be
It totally
That'd be
wouldn't
something.
work.
yeah.
Because he's like doing the vocals and doing the drum, and he found a way to fit it in, but it's not going to be exactly on the beat. It's a little off,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of cool that it's off.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
it's the same thing if you go listen to like the Replacements or the Who's to Do
Oh, yeah.
or like Joy Division, and you listen to early Joy Divisions, like it's a little off, a little happy accidents because that's the beauty in it.
Yeah.
You know, that's you know, and anything that kind of tells you that you shouldn't do that, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like that.
We were talking about the song "Miss You" by the Rolling Stones, and in the sax section,
Oh yeah, one of my favorite drumming moments.
doesn't he
Yeah,
full on miss a snare hit?
I think.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, because the whole song, Charlie Watts on drums, is just laying it down like a four on the floor, just backbeat kind of groove. And then during the sax solo, it's like
A run that he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Misses the beat on two, and it just is the greatest thing ever.
So good.
Such
Yeah, some of those mistakes
And
are.
it sounds so good.
Yeah, the happy accents actually make the character in a lot of classic 70s and 60s albums.
Yeah.
Like if you go back and listen to the Doors,
Oh,
you
yeah.
listen to the Who, you listen to Zepp, you listen to Pink Floyd, you can find them. I mean, I was listening to Todd Rundgren, you know, and he has them. And he actually even documented on one of his records like his errors.
Oh wow.
And he said, you know, but he left them in because they made the song. You know, he's a big producer. So he's like I left these in because like they actually make the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because on Hello It's Me, there's a bunch of mistakes.
Oh,
And there's timing mistakes. There's like cuts that aren't clean. If you really listen, they're like not clean. They're like today people wouldn't accept it. But that song's a classic song,
yeah.
you know, and it's got errors in it. So I tell people, it's like, if that song's got errors, then maybe you ought to look at what you're doing.
Right.
I think it's the same with audio bleed because the real life factor of a band performing, you're gonna get like the bleed of I don't know, like a snare roll or a snare rattle from the sound of like a low bass.
Mhm.
But it proves that this stuff wasn't recorded separately. It was really brought together initially with a foundation.
Oh yeah, that reminds me because the song that actually didn't make it on the record, we played it, live in the room, and there was a part where the bass note got hit and the snare rattled. You heard the buzz of the snare drum, and then I think Paul was like, "Oh, we'll take that out." I'm like, "No, you got to keep that in, man. You got to keep that there."
Makes that happen.
Yeah, because it's the character. Like people, like that's a lot of what it's endearing about certain pieces of music. And we're kind of at near the end of the episode because we kind of go off and we talk and talk, but we tend to go like an hour because some of our distributors can't go more than that.
Sure.
But yeah, we just love to have you on again. You said you're working on a second album already?
No, that'd be third, but
Yeah.
with second totally in our sights right now. We're just trying to push it as much as we can right now.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so anytime you guys want to come on and push the next project
Right on.
or like or push any a single or a video,
Sure.
we're cool for that. We like to do that. We like to help bands out. And like we said, we're inviting you to the PEG Bedroom Producer Festival version 2 when we get it kicked off either in November or December.
Cool.
And yeah, we'll be pushing this out. Well, this is already out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But we'll be pushing like the audio version of the podcast, and you'll know when we're live with that. It takes a little bit, but
Sure.
we should be live on Spotify later tonight within an hour.
Oh, sweet.
Sweet.
All right.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay, thank you very much, you guys.
No,
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you,
Thank you for
man.
having
It was a
us.
fun
This
time.
is so fun.
Yes.
Yeah, well, tell your other bands about it. If you have other friends who are in bands, we love getting guests. We like building up this whole community of musicians around the world. And just because I do electronic music, I try to tell people like that doesn't mean that everybody on here is going to be like an EDM electronic guy. I interview punk rockers. I interview people from Nashville. I interview a bunch of classical musicians from Italy. I just like I like the music. I like multiple things. I would listen to opera. I would listen to country. I
Oh,
listen,
yeah.
I listen
Oh,
to
yeah.
punk. I listen to everything. So I'm like a radio DJ. Listens to everything.
That's nice.
Cool.
So
We're the same way, so.
I feel
How
like
you
that
guys-
hour, man. We barely scratched the surface. It's
I
like,
know.
man,
Oh,
we
yeah.
got a lot to get into.
we'll do it again. We'll do it again.
All right,
Sounds
man.
good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.